Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I'm your host, JP John. Pause with me today, very special guest, former ICW World Heavyweight Champion. You may know him as Killian Dain in WWE or
She wearing.
NXT. Yes, there you go. Nice. He's got the shirt on. He is, of course, Big Damo. Welcome to the two-man power trip. How you doing?
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. The incredible coincidence of wearing this shirt. It was in the rotation and it worked out great timing wise. So check that
Yeah.
out.
You gotta wear it. You know what I mean? You former champion. You gotta wear it.
hundred
Gotta be in
percent,
rotation.
100%.
Yeah.
Great bunch of lads. I have to represent.
So what's going on in your world? What's up with you lately?
I've been very busy. It's been a great few months actually. Since we kind of had a little scare in January with a lot of stuff getting cancelled with the COVID pandemic over in Europe. So I had like a really rough month actually with a lot of cancellations. But since then, it's February, March, April, May. It's just been getting busier and busier. So I've had a brilliant few months, and I'm really looking forward to entering the summer. Um, this last week, I was in Pittsburgh for the first time with PPW, which is a lot of fun. And on the Wednesday before that, I filmed with AEW, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, it's been an interesting few weeks, shall we say?
What did you like about AEW? Or what was the experience like really with AEW?
Honestly, like so. AW, it had all the production and all the pomp and circumstance, like WWE. It was like all of the, the crews and everything, what they've done, everything backstage, front of house, whatever else, felt very like WWE without the walking on the eggshells and the difficulty with everything else. It was like WWE without the anxiety, which was very unusual, very different, and it was full of familiar faces. I had a very bizarre, almost every 20 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever, I'd run into somebody else who I absolutely adored from. I've met either, through the indies before WWE, either at WWE itself, or even on the indies after WWE. It was a very unusual experience, but it was awesome. I have to admit.
So it was a loss, right, to Sean Spears. I think it was on Rampage, right?
I think he's getting me back for beating him at NXT Orlando, all those years ago.
Yeah, the Ty Dillinger days. Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. So how did that all come about though? How did you kind of get in there? They just gave you a call like, "Hey, you're going to be in the area. We want you in," or like what happened?
No, it was about a month beforehand, and they got in touch saying, "Would you be free this date?" And I was like, "Sure, absolutely." And it almost changed to the week before, actually, until then it could change back to the original date. It's the joys of live television. Things change here and there, with what happens with so many moving parts. But no, it was I knew in a while. I knew a few weeks beforehand, and obviously I kept it kayfabe from even my own friends. So some of the guys who I have, many group chats with, I kept it very quiet from them. So they were like, when I ran into them at different points. So because in this industry, everything changes so much. So you're really not sure one day to the next. So you kind of you're kind of guarded in a way, and you want to make sure that people see you when it's definitely happening, as opposed to, hey, this might be happening, and it doesn't. Especially in my younger days in the industry, that would have happened a lot. But as over the last 10 years, things have got a lot more professional, things like that. But you still have that little guarded nature, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. When they call you and stuff, is it like, "Hey, we want to bring in for a tryout," kind of thing? Because obviously you don't need a tryout. You've been everywhere. Like, how do they kind of word it or phrase it? Like one time deal and like,
Honestly, we need you for TV on the Wednesday. So you're thinking to yourself, could be anything. You know what I mean? But like this has been my career for so long. It's been my job for so long that you're willing to take any opportunity as it comes, and that's the funnest part about wrestling right now is people aren't afraid to take chances and to go, okay, he isn't a part of our crew, but let's bring him in, let's see what happens. And listen, like, I was very blessed. I got my full entrance and everything like that. Like, I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but it was a fun experience for me. And like, it was just, everything was so quick, which was great. So, but I had a wonderful day, and it was great seeing so many people, so many friends. You know what I mean? And like, as I said to you before, like, it was almost like the least anxiety I've had on a TV day,
wow.
and yet it was probably the most like just so much talent there. Like it was brilliant. I was watching some of the matches beforehand. I'm like, oh my god! And the crowd, it honestly felt like a takeover crowd or something like that. And like when I was speaking to like some of the lads from Undisputed Era and stuff like that, they're like, yeah, this is us every week. And I'm like, oh my god.
Different atmosphere, right? Like it's different than elsewhere, that you were, WWE NXT, if you will.
Well, I guess like I'm sure NXT could have been something like that if they toured, but insofar as having that in Florida every week with the same fans, they did their best. But like, there's how do you match 10,000 people screaming? It's impossible. Whereas on Raw or SmackDown, because they're much longer shows and they're conditioned to be a very different audience. So you're not expecting that except for maybe at pay-per-views or something, you know what I mean? So it was just amazing to see that, like up close and personal, and how excited the fans were for everything. It was amazing, actually. And I can see, I'm almost jealous of the lads and ladies who get to work in front of that every week.
Yeah, man, their crowds are like, it's just crazy. You could say it's 6,000, 8,000, whatever it is. It doesn't matter like how many people, the decibels or whatever you want to call it, the how loud they are is it never changes. It's always at that high level.
It's brilliant because listen, we've went through a period where we almost have fans who maybe are sitting on their hands a bit more, or almost studying what's in front of them instead of getting lost in it. So it's always brilliant when we get an opportunity, wherever I am, you get an opportunity to work in front of fans who just want to enjoy themselves, and you see that in front of the AEW crowd. Like, they were there for the time of their life and they got it.
Do you think that is a huge problem with some of the business? It's not the wrestlers, like could be the fans. They're critiquing, they're watching, they're studying, but they're not, like you said, they're not getting lost in it like they used to.
I mean, I it's not that it's a problem per se, because like society has changed. You know what I mean? I know that people go to movies and go in there with a negative mindset, and know that, like, almost try not to enjoy themselves. And I guess we have an element of that too, because we have people who are so interested in wrestling that they only want things to go the way that's in their head, and they don't enjoy it if it doesn't go that way. And I get it. Like, it's a difficulty. It's something that wasn't prevalent 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You just lapped up what was in front of you. And I get it. The guy that you want doesn't win, or the girl that you want isn't holding a title or whatever else. That's I get it, but it'll get to there. It just might not happen for you today. It might happen for you in 6 months or in a year. And like, it's just so interesting sometimes when you see it the opposite, when people just go there to have a good time. And there's been indies that I've been on where just people have just it's I'm almost blown away by people enjoying themselves, because it hasn't been like that for a while. And I guess it might be the same at certain other sports, or certain other activities, whatever else. I noticed it in soccer, like over the last 10 years. It used to be vociferous, like at almost all times, but then you started seeing, like, certain stadiums, people would actually be sitting studying what's in front of them, as opposed to like reacting to it. And I've been in that position. Like, I'm a lifelong Man United supporter, and I remember I briefly had a season ticket, and I watched a lot of games live in the stadium in Old Trafford in Manchester. And I remember there was a period I'd be studying what was going in front of me, instead of just trying to to enjoy as it was happening. So I have been at that period, so I do understand it. It's something I've been obsessed with outside of wrestling. You know what I mean? It's like my number one hobby. So I guess that's what it must be like for somebody who's, this is their only hobby. You know what I mean? And they'll like or they'll dislike certain things, and that's it. But honestly, when you get people who are just there to have a good time, it's mind blowing. It's so much fun, and it was noticeable on Wednesday.
It's funny. I was literally with my son. We were watching Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and I almost had that mindset where it's like, I'm like studying. I'm like, oh, like, I liked it. It was very good. It was enjoyable. But like, to watch my son's reaction, like, popping for stuff, going crazy, like, oh, he did that, oh, like crazy. And, he's only 6, but still, like, he's going nuts for stuff. It's like, oh man, I wish I had that enthusiasm for stuff. Like, I'm like watching and studying. I'm like, oh, Jim Carrey, great line there. I'm like watching and stuff. And I mean, I wish I was more like him, where he's just like, I'm just going to enjoy it, and like, oh, this happened, oh my god, and really just fall in love with it, just lose yourself in it.
Well, honestly, like you kind of nailed it. Like I'm sure when I was a kid, like I was the first to just enjoy whatever was in front of me, and as I've got older, or beleaguered with certain things. But I've noticed recently with like Marvel and stuff like that, I've tried to enjoy it a lot more, and just take it for as it comes. Like, because you get into a period where you're like, oh, I wonder if this is going to happen. No, I want this theory, or I want this, whatever else. I've tried to be a bit more like, what, I'll just enjoy what it is, and honestly, it's a lot easier for me. And I've really enjoyed what they've put out for the last while, because I feel like it's really helped me just be what it is, as entertainment, as something that I enjoy, and just that something that I've paid to see. So whereas I see things sometimes people spend $50 to $100 to go and shit on something that just blows my mind. I just don't have that disposable income.
Yeah, yeah, really. But it's funny with those movies too, because I was a big comic book guy. I'm like, oh, they should do this storyline, that, and my buddy, they flat out was like, listen, they're gonna do whatever they want for the movie. Just enjoy the movie. Don't think about other storylines. You're like, oh, because that completely ruins it. You're like over analyzing it.
Absolutely, and there's a reason why they've chosen the story. You know what I mean? Like there's you know these things have been tested in front of sample audiences and all that kind of crap as well. The stuff that we actually don't even think about. You know what I mean? But like I know that like years ago, like with the way the old X-Men was and stuff like that, it didn't really follow anything that any of us knew from. I followed the cartoons when I was a kid. Other people
Yeah.
read the comics. And none of it is close to any of it. So, you're not sure whether to like it or hate it. You know what I mean? But I know that, like for example, with The Boys, the TV show that came out recently, like I'm a huge fan of the comic. I'm not a big comic book guy at all. But Garth Ennis is a Northern Irish writer, and he wrote The Boys, and his sense of humor just completely is exactly what I love. And obviously being Northern Irish, and like I adored the comic book, and I actually love that the TV shows went in a different direction from the comic. It's made it a lot more fun because I don't know what's going to happen next. Don't get me wrong, like they've made little hints here and there that this is going to happen or that's going to happen,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe they're going to do that. But that's awesome. But yeah, honestly, that's what being able to switch off has helped a lot, and I think it's given me what I wanted. It's just to be entertained.
Man, I love that show. Homelander is the best. What an awesome character. Like, who would think like this true blue American guy, he's such a phony, but he's the most powerful guy in the universe. Like, it's such a like conundrum, but it's so good, so well written. He's like the
Oh,
most
what if
complex
Superman was
character,
a
but he's
dick?
the
You know
best.
what
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah. And he just kill people just like that. You're like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, he just doesn't like anybody. It's great.
No, it's incredible. It's incredible. It's been a lot of fun to watch, and like, it's so funny because like they interact sometimes with us, on the Twitter, or whatever else. And Nikki's became this massive fan of the boys, so it's been fun. All the gifts and everything else every time one of their mad fucking scenes happens, and we're posting it to each other and whatever else. So no, it's been a lot of fun. And as I say, like at a time when like superhero culture is massive, it's really like ingratiated in what people like from all ages, which it never used to be that way. And because like it's achieved this following, to have this anti version of superheroes has been incredible. It's almost like it's like a parody, but in a really awful way.
Yeah. But it's so well written and it's so well done. Like you'd think like, oh, it's gonna be like some corny superhero thing. It's like the exact opposite. It's really dark and gritty and disturbed. I mean, really good stuff.
Oh, it's only going to get worse from what I hear. So
Wow. It's some of the stuff Homelander does is just like, I can't believe I can't believe this hero, quote unquote, would do stuff like that.
absolutely, absolutely. But knowing what happened in the comic is really interesting, and because they've went a different direction, it means you have no idea. Like for those of us who followed it, we have no idea what's next, and there's something beautiful about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you gotta leave it open. You don't wanna know, no spoilers, stuff like that. Speaking of superheroes, though, Nikki ASH, your wife, do you kinda like the direction where she's going? She's almost going a little Homelander-ish. She's not really being a superhero anymore.
I think she would do a very good job if they really wanted her to go full Homelander. Yeah, honestly, like I love the Nikki ASH character, and I was gutted that they turned it so quickly. I think there was a lot more to go with the babyface route, but that's the joys of television. If they need something different, then they go with it. And like what, I know that Nikki will slot in wherever she needs to. She can do whatever they need. And yeah, it's been fun watching the journey. It's one of those things. It's everything moves so fast on TV in comparison. You know what I mean? Like if we really look back to the beautiful times of pro wrestling, most storylines were done within 3 months, but they felt like forever because I was young. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes,
And I need to remember that sometimes.
yes.
But yeah, I think for her, I'm just looking forward to seeing what's next. Like. The stuff with Dewdrop, like her and Dewdrop both started a week apart at the same school, in the same city, 14 years ago. So it's very cool to see them on screen together. Like they both started in the same place but went on different directions, different journeys. And there's something really cool, especially for me and for a lot of the guys back home, seeing them like actually pairing up and doing stuff on screen. I'm looking forward to them maybe getting more promo time together. I know that like Nikki let the writing team know and the creative team above them, let them all know like their shared history, and they're not just two people from the same country. They're two people who have a very, very specific shared history, and it's
Yeah.
been very cool to see them get a bit of time on together. And like for both of them, it'll be a lot of fun.
Do you think, I know you're kind of saying that it ended too soon for that gimmick. Do you think that that is what happens too much in wrestling? Like they gave up on that too quick, or maybe he could have had longer, better creative for Nikki really as a babyface.
I think they just overanalyze everything, and that is that is the number one problem with all of us right now is we overanalyze everything, and it's just one of those things. I know for a fact that they didn't get the merchandise out until she'd actually like it was all primed and ready to go, but it didn't get released until after she'd lost the belt. So I mean, like you never got a fair representation of how she was actually doing as a babyface. So, but that's neither here nor there. Like she had a great experience, had a great summer. It was a lot of fun. She got chances to do things that we never thought were possible when we started way back when. You know what I mean? Like when her and Dewdrop started in 2008, who'd have known that all these years later, Nikki would be a women's champion in the biggest company on the planet.
And was that like her creation, the actual like character and the look? Was that all her?
Absolutely. I mean, like her idea for the superhero. Obviously, I had a couple of nudges here and there, but we actually created like really cool costumes. But they wanted them stripped down. They wanted them to be the costumes to be a little more simpler, because if it was too cool, if it was too Marvel, it would be harder to tell the story of like the almost superhero aspect of it. You know what I mean? And because she doesn't have powers, so she can't fucking fly
Right.
around. So they wanted to strip back, and like so that was the creative team there actually like got involved with the actual costume itself. But in terms of everything else, it was Nikki who brought the dossier to Vince McMahon, and went directly to him. And then a couple of months later, it was him who said, "Okay, you're what you've got there's great. Let's do it." And they did. So it was one of the coolest things. I know it inspired a lot of people in the company, who maybe were sitting waiting or were having issues and whatever else, who then went directly to him and gave him professional pitches, and you're seeing some of them on TV now, which is great.
Yeah, that's kind of, I would like ballsy, but you know what I mean. That shows
It
some
was
gumption.
ballsy for a
Well, yeah, I
five
guess you
foot
could say ballsy.
Scottish
Yeah,
woman. It was very ballsy, and
yeah,
like listen, I know a bunch of guys who never did. You know what I mean? Like, and it's one of those things. It's like some people think they don't have to. Some people trust the process, which is true as well. Like, and I totally get that. You think. It's somebody else has been paid to do the creative, so I totally
right.
understand why people trust the process. But Nikki was like, "No, I think I've got a great idea, and I'm going to go directly to the top." And fair play to her.
Yeah, I mean, I guess ballsy would be a great word because it's like not a lot of people would do that, or they just feel like timid or maybe intimidated, maybe by Vince.
I think it's less intimidation and more like there is a structure in place, and it's one of those things. It's you're technically you have a writer, and then that writer has a leader and stuff like that. Like there is a structure, but sometimes if you want to get shit done, you have to go right to the top. And like fair play to her, she made that decision, and thankfully it worked.
So as far as kind of Nikki ASH could be a heel, could be maybe a Homeland character, but do you think that just in general though, do you think like that superhero character like shouldn't be a heel, like, or do you, are you cool with it?
Well, at the end of the day, like it doesn't matter. Like she can make it work. She was best known as a villain on the Indies. This is the
Mhm.
thing. Like we've never even got her close to the Nikki Storm character the entire time in WWE. Like that, I think my favorite thing is if she does go more like Homelander, she'll be actually really close to what Nikki Storm was on the Independents. So you actually might, maybe it might actually be her best work. But it'll be interesting. Like either way. Like listen, like I think Nikki can make anything work, whether it's heel, face, tweener, or everything else, because she's one of those people who puts everything into it. She still trains every week, still gives a shit, and you can see that when she tries. She's been working hard on trying to like perfect her in ring rest, and she's been in a lot more technical stuff with us recently in training. So I'm excited to see what comes next. Like whether it's 3 minutes or 30, she's going to give her best. So
Now, just going back to you, of course, I wanted to mention this and kind of ask you, AEW, is that still on the table for a return, or you have no idea? It's open, obviously, but do you have any idea?
Absolutely, anything could happen at any point. Like, for we had great terms, and I had a great experience, and everybody there was so enthusiastic. So you never know. If it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, then at least I had a cool experience. So for me, I wasn't sure if AEW was ever going to be on the table because they were the one company who never really got in touch when I first got released. I don't know, like if I'd heard maybe it was because I was having status issues when I first got released. But like at the same time, you just start thinking to yourself, well, I'll go and I'll do whatever I can elsewhere. And maybe that opportunity can come one day. And there you go. Months later, it did actually happen. And it was a very cool experience. And if it happens again, fantastic. As I said, like the team there was full of people who I hadn't seen in years, or some who I've been on shows with recently, or people who are in my own text groups that I speak to every day. So it was quite a mix for me, and it was actually very awesome. So as I said, like if it happens, fantastic, and if it doesn't, well, I had a great experience.
So I was talking to a wrestling buddy of mine. I won't say his name because I don't know if he wants to know that people know it's not. But I was saying to like, oh, I can't believe they brought in Big Damo and he lost. Like he lost to Sean Spears, and he was like, no, it's okay because it's national exposure, it's TV. And like, I'm thinking like a Mark or like a wrestling fan. It's like, no, he shouldn't lose on TV. It's like, no, like that's a good thing because W. Morrissey did the same thing. He came in, he lost to Wardlow, but he looked good. You know what I mean?
Oh, I
Physically, I
look
mean, he
great.
looked good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things.
Listen, it's one of those things though. Like I could say no, to the booking, and maybe it never comes up again. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
but for me, this is the best job in the world, and if the job is to if it's 4 seconds, then I'll do the 4 seconds as best I can. If it's 30 minutes, then oh my god, but I'll do my best. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because listen, I grew up my entire life from I was 4 years old. I wanted to be a pro wrestler. From I was 15, I decided that this is what I want to do. I went out of my way to find schools. I moved countries. I went all over Europe to try and get better until the point where I was literally I was struggling to get any better, and then I finally met the right people who gave me the kick in the ass that I needed. I made my way to America. I got to WWE, and then I had some of the best experiences of my life there. And now on the other side, you get a chance to do something like that on national TV with this incredible roster, this incredible place, in front of this amazing crowd in Houston. And yes, sure, people might say you lost, whatever else. It was a short match, whatever. And I'll say, well, at the end of the day, I had a hell of an experience. I had something that I'd never done before, and you never know, what could happen in the future. And it's one of those things for me, I want to experience as much as I possibly can because we're only on this earth for a very short time, and if I say no to everything, then who knows what will happen to me? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I'm one of those people. If my job is to go in and just put somebody over, then I'll put them over as best I can. So.
Yep. It's funny, like you and Morrissey, like, okay, you guys are on TV, you guys get the loss, but the internet's a buzz. Like you're out there, like guys your size don't grow on trees either, especially wrestling anymore. Forget it. Definitely, easily one of the bigger guys. So it's one of the things where like, okay, you're back on radars. You know what I mean? You're national scale. You're back on the radar. So I think in the end, like me thinking like, oh, should he have lost? It's like doesn't really matter because you're kind of back out there. You know what I mean? Really on a national level.
At the end of the day, like if you look at the likes of MMA and everything else, everybody loses now. You know what I mean? So there's very few places in the world. Maybe Floyd Mayweather's the only person who can walk away with an undefeated record. Everybody else in every other sport loses. So
Yeah, yeah, that is true. Pretty much, yeah, yep. And Floyd is now taking weird exhibition fights against guys that he's just destroying. But I
hey,
guess
listen, he can do what he wants. You know, he's proved himself as probably the best technical boxer of all time. He may not be the most fun to watch, but he earned every one of those 50 wins. So
yeah, yep, can't knock it. So with you though, when you first like get into the business, are you always a huge fan? Are you dying to be a wrestler? Are you dying to get into the business?
So as I said, like I was a fan of this from 4 years old, but when I really started making like thoughts about trying to plan out like getting into this at 15, 16, I was like, okay, I'll finish school at 18 years old. I'll move to Scotland. I'll pick up a school there. Then I get to Scotland. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to start looking for better schools. I'm gonna have to looking for better coaches, looking for better seminars, and then you start getting work, and then you're like, okay, I need to try and extend my work elsewhere. That's the way you see it. Like it starts as a hobby. Sorry, it starts as uh, like a passion, I guess, or an idea. Then it becomes a hobby. It becomes a part-time job. It becomes a full-time job. Then it becomes your career. You know what I mean? And at one point, it engulfed my entire life. I was watching 40 to 60 hours of wrestling a week while still wrestling multiple times a weekend. I realized that was too much. And,
Yep.
that is my first year in WWE, like, you were in ring 5 days a week. It was insane. And then we were watching Raw, SmackDown, TNA, whatever was on TV. Like, and I had, New Japan World came out. So I was obsessed with that anyway. And then I'd be watching whatever old wrestling that I possibly get my hands on. So, it was one of those things where like, that was too much, you know what I mean? And you had to back that off. That's why I'm kind of following soccer a lot more. It's become a really good hobby for me, a really good release to get away from wrestling, and so I can enjoy wrestling more when I watch it or when I do it. I think there was a little period where I was just a bit too engulfed in it. You know what I mean? Because I had this weird mentality. I was like, no, you need to be, spending 40 to 60 hours a week of wrestling or more, because this is what you want to be and this is what you want to do. But there is such a thing as burnout, and I think everybody feels it at some point. I'm sure if I watched 40 to 60 hours a week of Marvel or reading comics, I'd fucking hate it by the end.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah, it's too much. Is too much. Is there guys that you really like when you're growing up, like, oh, I love this guy, like he's my favorite, or guys you really gravitated towards?
Absolutely, but it changed as I got older. I mean, when I was 4, I loved Sting. Sting was my hero. Then it was Ultimate Warrior, or it was Hogan, or whoever. You know what I mean? But as like my brain started, changing up at what I liked watching and things like that, and like 14 to 16, I was obsessed with technical wrestling. Like so, you know. Literally, like your Malenkos, your Lance Storms, your anybody who was like Bret Hart. Oh my God! Like there was just so many I was really into, and then like as I got into wrestling, you start to realize like how good like the sound of Shawn Michaels is and stuff like that. And then I think the realization that like who engulfed all of that was actually Fit Finlay, because he was brilliant at everything. And I only realized that as I got older, and I'd be watching like the old World of Sport and stuff like that. And or I remember him from WCW. I remember, and then there he is now on WWE TV, and like it was crazy. And then I started really studying Fit, and like first of all, I loved him as a kid because he was from Northern Ireland. He was from 5 miles away from where I grew up. So I was like, holy shit, if he can do it, shit, if I work hard enough, this could happen. And then when you really start to watch him, you're like, oh my God, he can do literally everything brilliantly, whether it's heel or face or whatever else. He's just everything looks believable. His technical abilities outmatched. And it's funny now, having worked with him now as a producer and as a coach. I got in the ring with him as well when he was coaching, and you're like, oh my God, he's actually way better than I realized. So I think like over these years, there's been so many different people who have influenced me in so many different ways, and then as it became a big man, I obviously became obsessed with the likes of Samoa Joe, the Vaders, the Bam Bam Bigelows. Like I'm actually underselling so many, but there was just like it's laughable like how many great influences there are now, because we've got the access to the internet and stuff like that. You can literally watch anything you want. That's why I got obsessed with wrestling, as I was talking about those 40 to 60 hours of watching, because you suddenly have everything available to you, which, when I was a kid, we had the tape trade, or we had the hope that you can catch the show on TV or whatever else. And like now it's so different. Like, we live in a really impatient society. We want everything here and we want it now, and that's what you can do. If I really want to find a match, I'll find that match. You know what I mean? But it's so cool. Like as I said, spending all that time with Fit and realizing how good he is, and the beauty of knowing that like we grew up from so far like close to each other, obviously different time periods, different eras, but like that was a hell of a set of shoes to follow in, sorry, set of footprints to follow in, and honestly, like if I can end my career at 25% the level like he is, then I'll be very proud of that.
Yeah. He's so damn good. He's so almost somehow, like, undervalued, I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, he was so good, people almost didn't realize, like you said, I didn't
inside
realize
the
until later, like, how great he was.
inside the industry, he's not undervalued. I think it's just, you know, by the time he was in WWE, he was a little older. You know what I mean? So he knew what his role was. He was there to try and make people look good. His first feud when he came back to WWE was with Bobby Lashley, and really helped Lashley become the wrestler he was going to be. And that's the thing about Fit. Like, I wonder if 20 years younger Fit at that time would have been a megastar, because everywhere else he went in the world, he was, you know what I mean? So it'd have been really interesting, what would have happened. But that's the old what ifs for everybody else. But the beauty is now he is in the Performance Center. People are getting to learn under him. I know that Braun Breaker recently was saying how important he's been for him. He's like a Yoda for him, which is pretty cool. For me, like getting to work with Fit was outrageous. I never thought it would happen, and I was so blessed that I got to be produced by him and then be trained under him, and like getting to watch his kids wrestle now is really cool. I'm on shows with them and stuff like that. I'm thinking, holy shit, these guys are going to be good.
Yeah. Whew. When you're, like, coming along, though, and obviously you're getting into business, the European scene, is that really kinda starting to kick off? Because it seems like when you're kind of really getting your foot wet or getting your feet wet, seems like the European scene is starting to really kick off.
So there was a period where I think the recession hit the end of about 2008, 2009, and there was this massive tumble. Like there was a dive, because we had a couple of really big promotions leading up to that, and even like your average building was doing pretty good business, and then suddenly that all just went to shit. And like I remember 50 people in a crowd was a good day, and that was a couple of years that were tight, they were hard, and then after about 2012, you just noticed things were just starting to get a little bit better. ICW had really like kind of started pushing forward. Progress down in London were really like they had something they were going to try and do. Rev Pro moved away from IPW, and Rev Pro started like saying, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do this. We're going to choose this idea, and then OTTs like formed over in Ireland. So suddenly you've got these four kind of companies, and there's a few others. I'm missing out a few as well, but those were the kind of leading four, and like at that point there was a lot of us coming through. We're 8 years in, we're 9 years in, we're 10 years in, and suddenly it all clicks. We're all suddenly wrestling each other. We were all in different regions, and suddenly we're all in the same shows, and then boom, it just explodes from there. I remember like that Rev Pro roster, like Andy Quilden would choose maybe 5 or 6 guys, and you put them against Japanese talents or American talents, and that was it. That was going to happen. They were going to get their big kind of push, and it worked for all of us. I remember like it was Osprey, Marty, myself, Zach, and like all of us went on to great things. And it was like, wow, when I really look at that, it was like, shit, good job, Andy. And then like, Progress and ICW had, these incredibly talented rosters as well. And ICW, like I remember at one point, I think with NXT, NXT UK, even like some of the American companies, TNA, Ring of Honor, whatever else, were cherry picking a bunch of us. And like there must have been a part where ICW was like, oh shit, what are we going to do now? Because, maybe 10, 15 people all got taken from that roster. And that's amazing when you think about it. And that's how quick it rose and how well it rose, because, all of us, had just all came together at that time. And, we knew that there was something special. Drew Galloway got released into WWE, and he was able to maybe lead us to that next level. And there was the likes of, Fergal Devitt was doing doing bits in New Japan. Like he was, you know, became the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion and stuff. And then he's coming back and he's working with us and he's giving us seminars and stuff like that. You've got Robbie Brookside who started his own school down there in Leicester before he got snapped up by NXT himself. So, you know, there was all these influences that you know, I was suddenly being privy to, and I'm like, oh shit, you know, I'm getting new information and getting that kick up the ass that I needed, and then I was able to help, you know, some of the younger lads coming through at the same time. So honestly, by 2015, it just exploded. You know, we're putting thousands of people in a building, we're putting on great shows. We're putting on shows comparable to everywhere else, like in the world, which is mental. ICW put, you know, something like 6,000 or 8,000 people in a building, and Progress put, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 people in a building. OTT was putting 2,000 people in a building, and you're like, okay, that's incredible. That is outrageous. You know, the RevPro were regularly selling out the York Hall, which is an old boxing venue and stuff. Which, you know, just realize, you know, I kind of realized there and then, I was like, we're on to something super special here. And so many of the boys there at the time all went on to even bigger and better things. But yeah, that little boom period from maybe about 2012 to 2016 was a pleasure to be a part of. It just felt like it was only getting better week on week. There was a period where I was turning down so much work. I felt serious guilt because previously I wasn't turning down work. You know what I mean? There was a period in 2009 where you were struggling to get work. You were hoping for the best, and then by 2015 it was like, you know, people are getting mad at you because you can't do any of their dates, and you're like, I'm so sorry, but I'm so busy. We would do these tours of the ICW. It would be all over the UK, which it was. We were literally like a touring rock band. It was insane. You know, like Progress was just, it just was exploding. Like, and I wasn't even a main player in Progress. I was a bit part player for Progress, but anytime I went back, it was like, boom, there's 100 more fans, there's 200 more fans, there's 500 more fans. Oh my God, it's a bigger venue. It's this, that, the other. And it got insane for a while. I remember, like, I hadn't done an awful lot with OTT. I'd done a few bits here and there. Then I went back once and it was just, oh my God, I just couldn't believe it. The crowd were just insane. Like, they were there for everything. Whether it was comedy, whether it was serious, whether it was aggressive, you know, whether it was tag team, they were just there for everything, and they loved everything they were being served. And like, it was such an incredible time. We were spoiled, you know. And then for the younger ones coming in behind us, they got to learn from our mistakes, and then suddenly they're in front of all these people at such an early time in their career. So, you know, suddenly your Pete Dunnes and stuff like that, you know, are exploding onto the scene. Like, and it was just like, it was amazing to watch. Like, I remember, like, I wrestled Pete Dunne when he was like 14 or 15 years old or something like that in like 2009, and then fast forward like 6-7 years and he's a man now. He's absolutely incredible. So, but that's what kept happening. Then, like, behind him, then there was Tyler Bate. I met him, he's 16 years old and he's utterly insanely good. And then, like, you saw what him and Pete ended up doing in Chicago, I think in like 2017, and it helped revolutionize what NXT wanted to be, you know. So it's just so crazy. That whole period, like, was just amazing, and like so many success stories and so many people came out of it. Like, and honestly, like, when I look back, you're like, you know, the hope is to try and get the scenes up to that level again. And I know with OTT, they just put 2,000 people in a building. They're going to do it again shortly. So I'm really, you know, excited for the Irish scene. Seems to be like ready to go. ICW in Scotland seems to be ready to get going again. And I know Progress are really pushing right now. We've got Super Strong Style at the start of June. And I know that it's going to be huge. Because they're going back to the ballroom, which is one of their older venues that, you know, that's where it really first happened for them. I know ICW has got Shug's House Party at the end of July, and it's going to be one of their biggest shows. And, you know, this is the thing, like, traditionally we used to not have shows during the summer, and now we've got all these massive shows. So it is really cool. And you know, they say that British wrestling's on a bit of a downturn. And then I've just rhymed off all these things that are happening. So I know the Rev Pro just got back into the York Hall again and filled it out. So yeah, like, honestly, like, I'm very excited for the future. I'm really happy for British wrestling and Irish wrestling, actually, because there was a period where yes, a lot of guys did get moved on, go over to America and Japan, but now there's a lot of great young talent coming through who've had to step up, and they really have. They've taken those spots, taken those places, and it's going to be very exciting. Like, how good they can get, because they can learn from all of our mistakes. So.
Yeah, next man up though, right? Next man up. You got to fill that spot.
That's it. And honestly, that's the way this industry survives.
So with you, is that how you get noticed by WWE and NXT? They notice you from like Rev Pro and stuff. Is that basically how you get signed?
So I think, like, obviously me being like this big hairy troll probably helped, because I was the only person who looked like that at the time. I saw a gap in the market. One of the ICW commentators, Billy Kirkwood, he called me the Beast of Belfast, and I was like, shit, that is the light bulb that went off, and it's exactly what I needed at the time. I was pushing to try and think, I need something. I need like an angle. I needed something that I wanted to go with, and because he said that, I was like, that was it. That's what I needed. So I stopped shaving my body and everything else. I let my beard grow a bit longer. I let my hair grow longer, and I was like, shit, this is what I'm going to go with, because I was already big. I was 300 pounds. I was doing strongman stuff at that point, and I kind of realized, I was kind of hiding that. I was wearing singlets and stuff like that. I was trying to almost keep it like hidden, and then I realized, no shit, I'll go the opposite way. Start wearing the trunks, and I look as big as humanly possible. And like it helped, because it was exactly what I was trying to do in ring at the time, worked with what I was trying to do out of the ring, like how I was looking. Sorry, not out of the ring, but how I was trying to present myself. And it all kind of clicked together. And that was, I think that was 2012 or 2013. And like, yeah, eventually, like WWE, of course, they want to try to get us all in for tryouts in 2015 or something, and I got told no, and that was the thing, that they weren't interested. And I was like, okay, but they had me cut a promo, and I actually really enjoyed doing promos, which is hilarious. I cut a really good promo for them, right? I talked more about my experiences growing up in Belfast. I grew up in the middle of a civil war, which happens, for a bunch of people all across the world. But I used that as part of a kind of cool wrestling story, drawn on my real existence. And they really dug it. And I was like, oh, okay. So William Regal stayed in touch with me after then. They were signing Shinsuke Nakamura, and they needed footage. They used a match that Shinsuke Nakamura and I had for Rev Pro, for his entire video, his entire hype video. And I guess they realized, oh shit, there is something there with this guy. And so, I had Regal, who obviously like was tried to put my name forward after I cut those promos for him, and then having that match that put me right in front of them. They were literally, we was screaming them in the face, and then I'm doing well. Like I'm speaking to New Japan. I'm speaking to, I've got dates lined up for TNA, the following January and stuff like that. And they're like, suddenly I get an email that says, oh, can you come down and see us in Manchester? I was like, oh shit, it's very different than what it was the last time. And I'm like, okay, sure. I'm still not quite sure if it means just a basic tryout or whatever else. And then, like, because normally they would room you, they would room us in alphabetical order and stuff like that, and you would have to make your own way there. But they flew me down. I was like, okay, that's interesting. They've roomed me with a fella called Tom Budgren, as you may know as Malachi Black. So the two of us our names are very far apart from each other. So I was like, okay, we're rooming together. So it was all very different from the outset. And then they put Tommy and I in a match together, like 5-6 minute match, whatever, and they signed us both. So I guess it was, they had a fair idea of what they wanted leading into that. But yeah, I think it was just, I caught fire at the right time. While they were looking, they started looking at the independents. They started realizing that the British wrestling was exploding. European wrestling was exploding, sorry, because there was also WXW in Germany and a bunch of others as well that we were all working for, So there was just so many things all happening at the same time. And they were like, take that guy, the big Irish guy, looks like a troll. We'll take the kickbox and tattooed guy. And, I'm sure there was a bunch of others that they took around that period, or at least the year after, or whatever else. Because they were like, we've decided that we do trust the independents and we will try something like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, then fast forward a couple of years after that, and they've they've got an agreement with ICW, they've got an agreement with WXW, they've got an agreement with Progress, and then it's all they create NXT UK and all these things. So like just so much happened over that period. But it was, for us, it was a massive pat in the back, because it was a testament that what we did worked. What we did was good, because it got so good that WWE wanted a part of it. So I mean, biggest company in the world was suddenly watching everything that we did. We would have their scouts would be at almost all of our shows, and it was pretty cool, because like that, we thought if we rewind to the 10 years before that, we couldn't have been further from anybody's mind.
Right. And now they're taking all the talent too. You know what I mean? Like they're scooping all the guys up.
Absolutely, but the beauty is that created all these spots for so many people. And yes, there might have been a couple of down years in terms of maybe the houses went down, but like there's a whole crop of guys coming through right now who are really fucking good. So, and I've been very blessed that I've managed to see a lot of them in the last few years. So sorry, in the last few months. Sorry, and the coolest part is WWE's kind of going through a weird thing where they're maybe not going to sign indie guys for a little bit, so there might be a 2 or 3 year period. It'll cycle again, of course it will. It'll go back to every couple of years they change their mind on. Well, every Monday they change their mind on everything, but every couple of years they change their mind on their strategy and whatever else. So it could mean if we get 3 years with these kind of rosters, then we're going to have this boom again all over again.
So who actually ends up signing you, and then like, do they tell you, we're probably going to change your name?
So I got, it was Killian Dain who emailed me directly after the tryout. I remember one of the times when I told you they said no to me, I got an email about, it must have been like 6 weeks later or something like that, saying, nah, we're not interested. This time I got an email like hours later, and they were like, oh, we're interested, and blah blah blah. And like at that point, I had all this stuff lined up all across the world, and I'm like, I'm going to need you to be a bit more than tell me you're interested, you know what I mean? And then eventually, well, I say eventually, but in a very short period after that, it was like, okay, we're going to start the visa process, blah 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 blah. We're sending you the contract and all that kind of stuff. But the visa process takes forever, coming out of Ireland and coming out of Europe in total. So I didn't actually start until, oh my god, like about 11 months after they actually signed me. So I worked on the indies for a long time. In between that period, I had my medical about, God, 8 months or something after. Like, so it was crazy when I really think about it. So I knew for a long time I was signed. I didn't really tell anybody until I really, really had to, you know what I mean? Because you're still like, you're like, this seems too good to be true, this is a long period and stuff like that. So, but then I had to start telling people, and then like, word gets around and whatever else. But like, I remember like, I started doing a lot of stuff for like Walk Culture and all that kind of stuff. While I knew I was on my way out there, so it was hilarious. So I was at least able to try and help that company like kind of rise as they were doing their thing, and because they knew like, yeah, he'll be leaving by October or whatever it is. So I did a couple of feuds and stuff like that with people, and I had a great time with that. I wrapped everything up with ICW and Rev Pro and all these kind of things. So and then like that was it. I get there, I'm there for, oh god, I think I was there for a couple of weeks, and Sawyer Fulton gets hurt. Sawyer Fulton gets hurt, and they're like, we need you in Insanity. And I hadn't even spoke to them about a name, because as far as I was aware, I was going to debut they were going to do a tournament in Britain. The precursor to NXT UK was the British tournament, and I was like, okay, so which is a few months away or whatever. I'm like, okay, so I'll debut there and whatever else. But no, boom, I'm on TV. They're calling me Demo on television. I was like, oh shit, that's pretty cool. I got to keep my name. I did that for a couple of weeks, and then they were like, okay, we want to change your name. It was a writer came to me. He wanted to call me Valak Dain. And I was like, no, because I just thought Valak was dumb. I'm Irish, so let's be Irish. You know what I mean? Like and so I gave them a list of names, and they chose Killian, which was cool, because it was the first on my list, right? I don't think it was necessarily my favorite, but it was up there. It was one of my top 2 or 3, and I was like, but I liked Killian. I kind of just explained this to another podcast. Killian is my school got renamed St. Killian's, which is hilarious. And like the area where my parents live now, the patron saint was Killian, so it's really funny. And it's just one of those things. The name is just kind of always in my head. I liked Killian Murphy,
Yeah.
the actor. Kylian Mbappe is one of the top soccer players on earth. So the name just kept hitting me. I was like, shit, I like Killian, you know. So I chose Killian, went for it. And like they kept the Dain part. There's no Irish person on earth called Dain, but it doesn't matter. So it was, that was the give or take that I was happy to go with, because I was like, they'll probably just get rid of Dain anyway. They get rid of everybody else's names.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
But one of the funniest parts is they always called me Damo backstage, and they always called me Damo even on comms. So there was a time when we had a new director or something like that, and I think Hunter was like, shoot Damo, and he's like, who the fuck is Damo? So they had to change. We all had to be called by our gimmick names after, and it was my fault. So whenever we were all the coaches had to refer to me as refer all of us by our gimmick names at all times. So I wasn't allowed to be Damo anymore, which was funny. But I'd been Damo for that entire time until one of the new directors had no idea who Damo was.
So a Triple H directive because of you, all because of you.
I think I fucked it up so much that they had to do something. I mean, it makes sense long term, because if that director's eventually going to go to Raw or SmackDown, he needs to know who, which one's Randy and which one's whatever. You know what I mean? So I'm sure if they say somebody else's name, it could be a devastating thing. Whereas at that point we were pre-taping NXT, so it wasn't as big a deal. They could always fix in post, but I know that like it was something that like if it had been live, it would have been a big issue. You know what I mean?
Yep. So what do you think about your Insanity? You get the jacket, you're in the group, but it feels like Sanity and NXT. And it's funny, I just talked to Alexander Wolf a few weeks ago about this. NXT Sanity, great, good potential. Like you can see where it's going. Sanity on SmackDown and in WWE, same company, but two different forms of Sanity. One worked, one didn't. How can you explain it? It's weird.
Simple. We weren't created by Vince, so like it was something that was given to him.
Yeah, there you go.
No, it's just something he's given to him. And originally he liked one of our promos, and then he watched the same promo 2 weeks later and didn't like it. So it comes down to, if he sees the vision, then great, it works, and that happens sometimes. Certain guys he saw the vision off and was like, yeah, brilliant. He didn't like that there was a girl in our group, so he got rid of Nikki. And that. To be honest, Nikki was such an integral member of Sanity. By the time we got called up, we were babyfaces in NXT. We'd went the full journey to the point where people genuinely started liking us. So then we go up to the main roster. We're heels. We don't have Nikki. Shinsuke Nakamura gets bitten by a bomb dog, so they need somebody to job to Jeff Hardy. Some genius puts their hand up and says, "Hey, why don't you have EY do that? He's great. He's a great wrestler, and he is. But that was our debut. We lose on television, and that's what happens. And like it's the sad but true part of live television, in that it could have worked differently. The truth is, the week before that, we were meant to debut at the very end of the main event. It had spilled into nonsense. Like it was like The Miz and somebody against New Day, and we were meant to appear on screen at the top of the ramp to close out SmackDown, but they overran, so it never happened. So, who knows what could have been, what might have been, whatever else. But the truth is, we had a good experience. I got to travel the road with two of my very best friends. I had such a wonderful experience. And to be honest, nobody ever told us why it didn't work, so we weren't able to fix it. If they'd have told us, we would have done anything they wanted. But for us, we were just continually having to guess. And that's sad but true. Or worse is you get told something that, and then afterwards Vince is like, that's not what he wanted at all. Which happens. And you know what? Like, I'm not blaming anybody else, because it's on us as well. We could have been better. You know what I mean? Like, we could have been tighter what we did. We could have worked harder. We could have pitched more. So the truth is, it rests in a lot of people why Sanity didn't work out. But the number one most important thing is we weren't created by Vince, and that's it. If he sees it, then it's fine. We went into SmackDown at the same time as Bludgeon Brothers, and that was the team he was pushing. So, I thought we would have been the perfect team to beat Bludgeon Brothers, because there was three of us. We could have done something to make that work. But that's not what was in their heads at the time, because they wanted us as villains. And that's fine. And like the Bludgeons were brilliant at what they did. Two very talented big men. So and that's just the way it is. It was unlucky we didn't get to go to Raw at the time. If we would have went to Raw, it would have been maybe a little bit. There would have been that extra hour of TV plus main event. Maybe there would have been more time for us. But if buts and maybes, we the things happened the way they happened, and we all had a good experience. We all got to be in WWE. We had a couple of pay-per-views and stuff like that, which was cool. We got the main event of SmackDown. We got to wrestle Kane and Daniel Bryan and all these things that for as bad as our run might have been perceived, it could have been a lot worse. Sadly, there's people who had much even worse experiences than us. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
We got to travel the world and had a laugh, you know what I mean? So I got to learn under EY, who's an incredible talent. Alexander Wolf is by far one of my best friends alive. We got very close, and I got to learn a lot about him growing up in Eastern Germany and stuff like that. Stuff that I would never have known, you know what I mean? Because I'm from the other side of Europe, So honestly, we had great experience, and like I got to see how good all the wrestlers in SmackDown were, because we do all the house shows and you got to wrestle everybody, and you had wonderful times. Yes, these people might only have 2 to 3 minutes on TV itself. Then you get to see them do a 20-minute epic at a random place in like Texas or something, and you're like, oh my god, they're actually fucking incredible,
Yeah.
And it was one of those experiences. But listen, like it didn't work on the main roster for a variety of reasons, and that's fine. We will always have NXT. We'll always have those incredible matches that we had, those incredible moments. The relationship we had with the fans was amazing. Like it was just something else entirely. I remember like our debut with not our debut, but when all four of us wrestled for the first time in a match at Orlando Takeover was one of the coolest experiences ever, because they were just there for us, and we were meant to be the villains, and just they immediately just loved everything we did. I got to be a part of that WWE production, the big production entrance and stuff like that, the lights, the smoke machine, everything, and like the whole Sanity entrance was outrageous. It was so good that they used it for the WWE 2K video game. Like that was the first commercial for the video game, was our entrance, and that was the biggest feather in our cap, because like fuck, there's Randy, there's all these people who are all John Cena, Roman Reigns, they're all amazing, and they chose Sanity, this little group from NXT, to be the opener to this entire video game. So that was pretty cool, like those really cool experiences. So no matter what happens, we always had that. That's how we always told ourselves, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's funny because like the video game and the entrance, the theme is like, oh, how could you miss? You can't miss on these guys. It's such a cool gimmick, and WWE just kind of dropped the ball with it. So to me, it's like, man, that we had something there, and they didn't do it. Like, you know what I mean? They dropped the ball big time.
Yeah, they dropped the ball, but we're not the first, and we won't be the last that they drop the ball on.
Yeah.
They're the biggest company in the world, and they have hits and misses like everybody else. It's sad when you see misses from people who did so well in NXT, for example, because as you say, it's their own company, and I reckon that'll happen a lot less now, because they're trying to go a very different route with NXT. So there'll probably be a lot less misses in that regard. But listen, like, all the way leading up to us getting there, there'd been so many acts that had worked in NXT that didn't get the light of day on the main roster, and sadly we ended up being one of them.
Were you shocked at the release? Like when you get your release from there, are you surprised when it happens? Or like is it just come out of nowhere for you?
So I think once they let go of Bray and Braun, every single person in that roster was like, yeah, all bets are off now. Like, because the year before that, when there was a little period where I wasn't on TV at all. Like COVID had just started, and like I was struggling for TV time. Like I think a lot of people were, actually, because they were struggling to know how to put TV together. I genuinely expected to get let go then, but I survived that, and I remember like having these conversations with the writers. If they're like, no, you were never in any of the lists, whatever. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then like I'm in at the point when I did get released, I was on TV every week. I was actually in. This is the funniest part. When I got released, I was in the PC. I was training some of the younger talent. I'd just been told by Terry Taylor that we've got this gimmick. Me and Drake Maverick are doing this thing on Tuesday. And it was quite a cool gimmick. I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Looking forward to it. And then you get released, and you're like, oh shit. So, and I just signed an extension on my deal. They could have let me expire 4 weeks before they let me go. I was due to expire the same time as Alexander Wolf. they extended my deal, and sadly they didn't extend his. So I got to see it like up close and personal. I helped him leave the States. You know what I mean? I helped him get his life together before he left, him and his
Right.
family. So I had one of the most emotional days of my life was taking them to the airport. You know what I mean? It like it sucked, and yet they extended my deal. They kept me on, and I was like, oh shit, I guess I'm safe then or whatever. And then I'm on TV and whatever else, and then boom, then I'm gone 4 weeks later. And then the weirdest part is, like, on their part, poor business, I guess, because I was a main roster deal, so I had 90-day release. So they could have got rid of me for nothing 4 weeks before
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So good for me, because I was waiting on my green card, so, and I didn't know if it was going to be 6 months or 16 months. So um, I had organized that outside of the company because I didn't want them to control that. So I was waiting on that coming. So I ended up being really lucky, and in fact, I ended up being incredibly lucky that I got paid for 3 of the 5 months that it was until my green card came. When it could have been, a lot less, and I could have been struggling actually for those months, so I got very lucky with how that all worked out. In the end, actually, because I look at some of my friends from Australia and whatever else, who had their green cards through the company and they got cancelled, and that sucks, and that's the heartlessness part of big business, and multi whatever companies, you know what I mean, conglomerate companies. That's what I was looking for. That is the harsh reality of it. And there's people, from different parts who were all waiting on their green card. Doesn't happen, so their visas get cancelled, and then they're caught with their dick in their hands. And I
Yeah.
was lucky that I kind of knew that I needed to get that going. I needed to get that organized, and I got very lucky that within 2 months of getting of my 90 days ending, I had my green card and I was able to go again. But I did. Don't get me wrong, I did miss out on a lot of work, and I was very lucky that whatever companies did come back and talk to me, I was able to work with and stuff like that. But like, there was a period where I'm having to say no because I legally can't take the work, and that was hard. Like, because I'm like, shit,
Yeah. That's rough.
opportunities are evading me here, and that's tough. But obviously at the same time, I tried my best to stay active. I was helping. There was helping a girl train, get ready for a tryout, and she ended up getting the job. So that was one of the cool little wins. That was really cool. I got released and helped somebody get a job. So,
Yeah.
but I enjoy that side of things and stuff like that. So that was cool. I was able to do that, and while I was waiting on my green card. So, and it also kept me relatively active throughout the whole summer. I was working out with a friend of mine, and then was able to help somebody get her dream job. So that was pretty cool.
Overall, were you happy with the time there, or you kind of wish it was more, or you wish they would have done more with Sanity?
Like, I think they're idiots because they should have put a belt on EY. There was a period when we were the top heels. There was a little period there where I think they should have put EY up against Shinsuke, and he probably should have won the belt. That's me as a fan as much as a guy involved, because I think EY I think they vastly underrated EY.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the because I know Hunter adored him, and knew exactly what he brought to the table, but in terms of creatively, I think they should have done something with him there. When I look back at it, I'm like, yeah, that was a bizarre time. But then I know we turned face kind of naturally and all these things. So I get it. That's why we went more tag team based, and then I went into the singles run and stuff like that instead, because the crowd took to us in a different way. You know what I mean? And that happens, and that's fine. Like when Eric and Axel beat AOP, it was one of the coolest. I did not expect it, and it was a great breakout for Axel, so it was really cool. So I guess because the WWE just let what happened naturally happen, the crowd started to like us, started to dig us, so we went baby. And I think a lot of that's down to both Nikki and Axel, because their energy they brought to Sanity, like, it drew people in. You know what I mean? Like, EY and I, sure, yeah, I'm the stoic guy, and EY is the babbling leader. But it was like, it was those two who really brought the energy, and it was like, it was actually really cool to be a part of, because it was, I noticed it like slowly and slowly, and I think having that big, pompous entrance made people immediately stand up and take notice, and then obviously their energy, and obviously all four of us are really good in ring, so that helps too,
Yeah.
especially at a time when everybody's good, like that NXT roster ended up getting so fucking talented. Like, it just got better, like, as when I first got there from the year that I got there for the full calendar year from I got there to the end of 2017, suddenly the roster was just insane. Like it was just like it was good, and then it was incredible. And I just remember thinking, shit, we're feuding with Undisputed Era, for example. Three guys who I really respected, and then I don't think I realized how good they were until I was in there with them. You know what I mean? And it was like, and that was
Yeah.
just the cherry on top. Drew Galloway's appeared now. He's like so our roster just got outrageously good. You know what I mean? So yeah, honestly, like no regrets at all. Like I as I say, from a creative point, I thought they made a mistake not to put the belt on EY. But for me, geez, like I had some of the coolest experiences, some of the best matches I was ever going to have. I remember I had this four-way dance with Johnny, Alistair, and Lars, and it was one of my favorite matches. It was like right at the end of the year, and we just went out there to try and kill it, and we did. And it was one of those things. So like, there was a lot of these crazy matches that I kept kind of having, and then like having the ladder match and all that kind of stuff after, like I knew I was getting promoted, and so my last hurrah was the ladder match, and then a couple of matches with Lars after, and I was kind of meant to feud with Lars in the January, but he had a couple of personal issues, so he couldn't do it. So I was kind of we were just kind of waiting to see what was coming next, and then boom, I do the ladder match gimmick, then I do the feud with Lars. So yeah, my NXT career was a lot of fun, and as I said earlier, I had so much fun on SmackDown. Like yes, it could have been better. Yes, we could have done whatever and made more money and all this kind of stuff. Sure, whatever. But like we had such a laugh. Like I can't even explain like the fun we had. There was days. So we got into this habit of getting Airbnbs, right? So Eric Young is like developed this crazy like obsession, right, with trying to find the most bizarre things he can for Airbnb, and we'd be in like these odd architectural structures that people call houses, all across America. And
Yeah.
then like because we're doing it and it's a lot of fun, a lot of people started joining us. Like there was one time it was the three of us. Nikki was there because she was doing a couple of things in the main roster. Tommy Dreamer was there randomly because he was in town. Aiden English has joined us. Like Ty Dillinger's there. Like there's like 7 or 8 of us all in this mad like fucking haunted mansion or something like that EY's found on Airbnb and stuff like. That's the thing. Like I can't explain how much fun I had, like, and it was such a great experience. And then like getting to, sit next to Daniel Bryan in a locker room, Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton, like John Cena's there on tours, and you're getting to pick his brain and stuff like that. Like, you're getting to work with the Undertaker at the PC, or there's The Rock has appeared. You know what I mean? Listen, the stuff that you never thought. Like, I got to be in a class with Fit Finlay, I got to be in a class with Shawn Michaels. Like, never in my life did I think I'd get a chance to talk to these people, let alone get to learn from them, and let alone get them, telling me that I'm good at this. You know what I mean? So this is the thing I'm saying. Like our experience was incredible. I was there for 5 odd years and had a fantastic experience. I definitely come out the other end a better wrestler, better mind for this business. And the best part of it for me now at 37 years old is I'm still in my, like, I think I'm entering my prime, if anything,
Yeah.
but I'm able now to actually like showcase, what I learned and be able to pass that on to the next generation and hope that they can, navigate these waters that little bit better than I did. You know what I mean? And, it took me a long time to get to the point where I was, I knew what I wanted to be in ring. I knew how I wanted to present myself. So like now that I'm able to talk to people and say, listen, I did this, I had to learn to overcommit before I understood, like, like I'd always be like one of those people who'll make a little change, a subtle change. Then it was until I actually went the fucking full kid and caboodle that I got, I had the career of my wildest dreams. You know what I mean? So now that I'm meeting people, they're like, oh, what should I do? What should I do? And I'm like, well, you look like everybody else. You know what I mean? You've got short hair, you've got stubble. You look like anybody I could walk and meet in the street. So tell me, like, why, like, how would you stand out in a room? How do you, like, Johnny Moss once said to me, like, you need to be able to stand next to Randy Orton. And like, I finally understood what that meant. What the day that I was standing next to Randy Orton, you know what I mean? And that is, it's so true. Like,
Yep.
Mossy's a coach now in NXT UK, but he's just this incredible mind. He was one of the first people I ever thought of as like a real wrestler who presented himself as incredible shape, incredible ability. He was strong as an ox, and he could do anything in ring. It's no surprise that he's a coach there, because he helped me so much. And this is before he was even coaching. He was still learning himself, and I'm learning almost by his example more than anything else. But he said it best. He said, "Listen, you need to be able to stand next to Randy Orton," and that's true. Like, that's for anybody coming through. You want to get to WWE, you need to be able to stand next to Randy Orton. And that's, I knew when I looked the way I did, I finally could stand next to Randy Orton. You know what I mean? Yes, he's still this Greek Adonis, physique and whatever else, but I actually belonged when I looked the way I did. But when I had the short hair and I had the short stubble and I was wearing the singlets and stuff like that, I just looked like everybody else. And this is the thing I say when people come and ask me. I'm like, well, you need to overcommit all across the board. If you think it's a good entrance song, right, that's fine. But you need to ask yourself, well, 1,000 people think it's a good entrance song. Well, 10,000 people think it's a good entrance song. Just because you like that song, yeah, I know Kanye's popular. That's fine, right? But you won't be able to use it in somebody that has a copyright. Right. So go and make your own song. Go and talk to a music producer. I've literally just done it myself. So, and it's those things that people learn as they go once they've heard it from a lot of people. There's a friend of mine who sadly, died a couple of years ago, Lionheart, Adrian McCallum, who was a little step ahead of all of us. He figured this stuff out before a lot of us. And when he tried to tell us, we wouldn't listen. And it was crazy, years later when we finally, it finally clicked, and he was just sitting there going, "You'd have listened to me 4 years ago." Right. And he was right. He was right then, and he's right now. And he was the first person with custom entrance music. He was the first person who, knew exactly how his character was and image was. He just got unlucky in that a time when WWE wasn't hiring, you know what I mean? But that's, there's people like that all across the world, But honestly, when I say to anybody, the number one thing, no matter what it is that you want to do in your life, you need to overcommit, because you'd rather they have to reel you back in than they have to push you.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So, as we hit the wind down, we head towards the finish here. What's next for you? What do you got coming up?
So as I said earlier, I've got the Super Strong Style 16 with Progress Wrestling. That is one of the most prestigious tournaments in all of Europe, actually. And this year will be the first time the winner gets the Progress World Heavyweight Championship. So all of us are clambering over each other for that one this year, I can tell you that. Outside of that, I'll be back over for ICW with Shug's House Party at the end of July. It's one of their biggest shows of the summer. I've got New Japan Strong. I literally just confirmed a date today, so a couple more dates for them over the next while. And then honestly, I've got a variety of stuff when it comes to Defy or Black Label Pro over here in the States, or a bunch of stuff over in Europe. So honestly, I'm very excited for the summer. As I said, January was very slow, and since then it has been booming. I've just been busy, and I'm very excited for what's next. Very excited for autumn. Very excited for winter. But I know that if you keep on top of me, follow me at Damo Mackle on Twitter and Instagram at Damo Mackle, all one word. You'll find out what's next. I've just released my theme music. Funny, I just talked about music there. I created a great song with David Grimison. He used to do all the tunes for ICW. He did El Fantasmo's song there in New Japan as well. He's this incredible, talented artist. Used to tour with Limp Bizkit back in the day, and he just created my music. We did a bit of a collaboration. I actually did some of the lyrics myself, which probably will explain some of the nonsense. And I've just put it up on my Twitter there. They're getting released there on Spotify and iTunes in the next couple of days, which is really cool. You can also get any of my merchandise on prowrestlingtees.com/Damo Mackle. So yeah, please have a look at the Twitter, the Instagram. That's where I generally try to update everything as much as I can.
Big Damo, thank you so much for all the time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, John. Thanks for having me. I know that we eventually got there.
Yes, finally we did it. Yes. Thank you, though. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.